the adverse effect and the ravages of climate change that is affecting us, of course, globally. And we can see the devastation of it with the El Niño rains right now. Many lives have been lost so far, as we know it. We have almost 20 lives that have been lost due to the devastation of the floods, and it continues apace to wreak havoc all over the country. Today is Friday. Every Friday we have Wongozi Today coming your way, where we take a critical analysis on the leadership of the day, keeping them honest. Of course, yesterday was a big day. We kept our eyes peeled on our screens and, of course, kept out our ears listening to radios to what the president had to say during the bicameral State of the Nation address. And so we'll be also slicing and dicing, analyzing this critically to see what is the way forward. And also, if at all the president is speaking to the periphery or it is just centered on the center, so to speak. But let's see what is fresh off the press this morning. We begin with the Standard. This is what you're waking up to the front page of the Standard this morning. My tough choices, it says, for a better Kenya, State of a Nation. In a speech that lasted slightly over an hour, President Ruto sought to give hope to a country he acknowledged is grappling with challenges by listing his administration's achievements and measures, which he said are a testament that Kenya is on the right path to transformation. And this is well laid out for you on page 4 and 5 and 8 of the Standard this morning. And just maybe to zoom into some of the key issues that were addressed yesterday inside the President's address, I'll give you also some of the voices that came from the Parliament yesterday on austerity. Stopped wasteful spending to rescue country from debt distress, to pay fast 45 billion shillings Eurobond installment by December. That is when actually this is maturing. And we have campaign promises, says he has laid firm foundation for rapid development, acknowledges challenges in fulfilling election pledges. Also subsidies. President says he has had to make hard decisions and painful choices on subsidizing consumption. Also on food prices, praises fertilizer subsidy for increasing maize production by 18 million bags, reducing cost of 2 kg unga to a low of 145. It continues on the other side as well. Let me just go over there. We have fuel cost. Fuel cost. President avoids commenting on cost of diesel, petrol and paraffin, yet that is the one of the catnip issues that is affecting the country. He played a bit of fancy footworks there, and you can follow the story inside the Standard as well. On education, praises recommendation of Presidential Working Party on higher education funding, and also on health, laws efforts to implement universal health coverage through preventative care. Housing head of state says affordable housing program has created 50,000 jobs. And on corruption, President issues stern warning against corrupt officials in his administration. Bipartisan talks, praises the National Dialogue Committee for efforts in uniting Kenyans. You can follow this story inside the Standard today. He says we have had to take hard decisions and make painful choices because we owe it to Kenyans to do the right thing and confront facts as they are without flinching or equivocating. You can follow the story inside the Standard. For Safaricom Post, 34 billion shillings profits. The profit jumps for the first half of the year, driven by strong growth in its lending and mobile data divisions. Yeah, the story on page 25 of the Standard this morning. And TSC's promotion interviews call on teachers. TSC announces that interviews for 36,505 teachers who have stagnated in one job group will start next month, and called on teachers to apply on page 10. And it seems there is a bit of hesitation from the teachers who are not really applying for these jobs. That's why the TSC also is calling on the teachers to make sure they do so. This is a second calling that actually has come from the Commission right now. This is the Standard today. Make sure you grab a copy. Also, just to remind you, if you're young and a young at heart, you have a Pulse magazine full of entertainment for you that is talking about Alone Together. Oops, it jumped to the second page there. But you can grab a copy for all those details as well. Let's see what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation. Tighten your belts. Tighten your belts. This is what we have from the president. Ruto says that his administration has been forced to make painful choices. In his first State of the Nation address, President Ruto yesterday outlined the key achievements his government has made since coming into office. But the head of state did not promise Kenyans struggling under the yoke of heavy taxation and a high cost of living any quick fixes. Instead, urging them to be patient and allowing his government to quote-unquote forge a path in the direction of progress, even as they ruled out subsidies on consumption. You have the story on page 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, a bite from him. But what he said on the sidebar, where we can actually just read out some of this and how the Daily Nation has put it on debt. In December, we will be able to settle the first $300 million installment of a $2 billion Eurobond debt that falls due next year. Also on food security, as a result of fertilizer subsidy, a 2 kg packet of unga is now selling at between 145 and 175 Hustler Fund. By the end of last month, the Hustler Fund disbursed 36.6 billion shillings with 2.3 billion shillings in savings and 7.5 million repeat borrowers. We have affordable housing. The construction of 46,792 units in various parts of the country is underway. On education, 56,750 new teachers have been hired, while 8,200 primary school teachers were retrained to teach JSS. On health, together with all the 47 counties, we have deployed 100,000 community health promoters. And it continues inside the Daily Nation. Also, we have a bite where he says that the time has come, therefore, to retire the false comforts and illusory benefits of wasteful expenditure and counterproductive subsidies on consumption, by which we dug ourselves deeper into the hole of affordable or of avoidable debt. The new direction may not be easy. This is what the president is saying. You can follow the story inside the Daily Nation this morning. Also, TSC lines up promotions of 36,500 teachers. This is on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. And Safaricom Kenya registered 10% growth in net income. Outlook, also I should say, Rotterdam, 1 hour 59 seconds. Kiptum's plan for marathon history. Let's see if he'll actually break it. And you can follow the story on page 50 and 51 of the Daily Nation this morning. Ruto has changed after winning poll. This is what Julius Malema of South Africa, who is in the country, was saying. South African opposition leader Julius Malema says President William Ruto has abandoned his initial quest for African countries to dump the US dollar and build their own single currency. This is the story that you can follow on page 12 of the Daily Nation this morning. And also, the Reprieve Court slams brakes on new higher fees for ID's passport. The High Court yesterday suspended a Kenyan Gazette notice reviewing upwards charges for critical documents like identity cards, passports, and government staff badges, pending the determination of a petition filed by Nakuru Court. This story continues on page 9, and I also will give you the list on how that particular figure was about to change drastically and also almost 100% to what is currently being charged. Let's see what we have on the teaser. No teaser today, but all that on the sidebar, and the teaser is down there. You can read all about it inside the Daily Nation this morning. Ruto, Kenya is ready for economic takeoff. That is the story that you want to follow inside the Star today. And the flagger reads, President says he has taken hard decision to save crumbling economy. That is the plan. Head of state lists key achievements since taking power over a year ago. And that story tucked away on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. You can see him, right? Pictures are telling how this is hour of reckoning. Speaker Moses Wetangula, Emerson Kingi, and President William Ruto in Parliament. And also we have Deputy President Rigathi Gachagwa's wife, Pastor Dorcas Gachagua, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, Attorney General Justin Muturi, Wiper Leader Kalonzo Musyoka, Interior CS Kithure Kindiki, and Chief of Defence Forces General Francis Ogola. Following proceedings in Parliament during the President's State of the Nation address, and you can follow the story inside the Star. Why Senators sent Meru Governor Mwangaza again? You can read all about it inside the Star. New tussle over civil servants' multi-billion medical allowance. Doctors have demanded the government reinstate their monthly health allowances when it abolishes the enhanced health insurance cover provided by NHIF. You can read the rest of the details inside the Star this morning. Remember, also you have the Pull-Out magazine, Siasa, that comes in inside the Star every Friday. Reality check for Ruto, Raila. You can read all about it as talks enters the defining stage. That is what is all laid out inside the Star. People Daily, we're prepared and ready to go. This is what Ruto says. State of the Nation, President defends new tax measures which he which have led to high cost of living, cites hustler funds, subsidized fertilizer, employment of teachers, promotion of judges, and affordable housing plan as key Kenya once again, saying he had to make hard decisions and painful choices. The story is tucked away on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. And Top Court holds new levies on state services. Garissa governor with 9 lives. That is on page 7 of the People Daily this morning. Tuko sawa tu. That is what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo. Rais aelezea ufanisi wa serikali yake katika sekta tofauti, akisema amedhibiti mporomoko wa uchumi kwa sasa. William Ruto amesema Kenya iko kwenye mkondo mzuri kutokana na utekelezaji wa sera za utawala wake mwaka mmoja baada ya kuingia afisini. You can read all about it inside Taifa Leo this morning. And viongozi sasa wahimiza upatanisho kati ya Mwangaza na madiwani. You can read all about it inside the Taifa Leo this morning. Let's buckle down to business. Safaricom higher dividend signal stops investor fight. Telco revises full year earning forecast up to 93 billion shillings. Kenyan unit returns 10.9%, net profit jump to 41.6 billion shillings. And you can read all about it inside the Business Daily today. Kenya comes market with 45 billion shillings early bond, Eurobond repayment. Kenya will pay back part of the 2 billion shillings Eurobond next month as it moves to calm a global financial market that has been jittery over the country's ability to meet its obligation next year. And I've read you a bit of it, so you are all the wise about it. But you can get all the details inside the Business Daily this morning. Kenya Power bans multiple meters for single connection. Kenya Power has halted the provision of multiple meters for housing unit blocks owned by a single customer in a strategy aimed at sealing revenue leaks due to illegal connections and higher tax for traders without digital ETRs. Traders have less than 2 months to sign up for the electronic tax invoice management system, ITMIS, or risk higher taxes and stiffer penalties in a fresh bid by taxman to enhance value-added tax compliance. So if you haven't signed up for the ETRs, be warned, you have less than 2 months to sign up for the ITMIS, for the ETIMS, not ITMIS, for the ETIMS, or risk higher taxes and stiffer penalties in a fresh bid by taxman to enhance value-added tax compliance. Quality titanium exports fall 63% in September quarter. Export of titanium minerals fell 62.9% in 3 months to September amid reduced production and shipment from the Kwale-based operations owned by Base Titanium. Also, you can read about Jandi Kisero's opinion today. There are several cases of public corporations with massive pending bills for projects which were abandoned many years ago. Read all about it inside today's Business Daily as well. In Uganda, Ugandans contracting HIV for fun. This is what doctors are saying, right? You can read all about this inside. Very telling story in the Daily Monitor. Be warned if also you're a fun lover and you're headed to Uganda. Museveni approves tax holidays, that is 500 billion shillings for innovations. All that tucked away inside the Daily Monitor. And Protestants eating most in government. Protestants eating most in government, right? You can read all about it also inside the Daily Monitor. You have the scoop, so get all the scoop as far as entertainment is concerned. And you can also look at the Jobs Corner there inside the Daily Monitor as well. In Tanzania, queries over removal of high-flying NIS boss. President Samia Suluhu Hassan yesterday made some new appointment and dissolved the TCRA board, but it was the removal and replacement of Dr. Elirehema Durie as Director General of National Insurance Corporation that raised eyebrows. And you can read all about it inside the Citizen this morning. How new payment system will transform African trade. That is the PAPSA, that also was being hailed by President Ruto here let's see how it will dramatically change the scenario as it is right now. And stay consistent in who you build for, says Lillian. You can read all about it inside The Citizen this morning as well. I will show you what we have on the front page of the New Times. Of course, there are the dailies as well. Before we continue, pass with the show. And also I'll give you greater details of what really transpired yesterday. Holy Court this morning with Professor Ferogola, who is economist. Also be joined by Kipruto Arab Kirwa, who is a governance and policy analyst. Also be joined this morning by Churchill Suba, who is the executive director of the Kenya National Civil Society Convention Congress. So we shall be looking at a raft of issues as well this morning. Professor, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Right, so yesterday this time, not actually this time, around afternoon, your eyes were all fixated on the television, or what were you doing? Did you listen in?
Yeah, you know, when the head of state addresses the nation, you have to listen at least because you want to understand where is the government going. Mm-hmm. Is there any new direction? And I was trying to analyze what has the president going to say his achievements are, because people have been scorecarding him.
Yes.
He had to scorecard himself.
Mm-hmm.
One big announcement he made that if at all will happen is that he says, I'm going to pay Eurobond on time, if not ahead of time. I'm sure all cynical people or Professor Doom are expecting to say it, we cannot be able to pay Eurobond. So maybe that's what I was waiting to see. And in fact, the rating for Kenya in terms of financial stability was being done before. And some are saying the rating doesn't look good. I'm sure that breathes some, at least economically, some positiveness in it. Of course, as a normal mwananchi, they don't care about Eurobond. In fact, they don't even know what Eurobond is. They just want to know, can food be cheaper, fuel cheaper? People look more for what is affecting them directly. And I'm sure if you talk about the direct benefit to Kenyans, then many Kenyans remain disappointed. I was watching television somewhere in Dagoretti Corner. I was just in the bar watching, and you could see people's faces when he says that, give me more time. When people just had, give me more time, I could see people's faces change totally. Because the president began with that he's a charismatic guy with a charm. And guys were expecting, the president is in good mood, let's wait and see what happens. And I'm sure that the only prize who got it maybe is the lender. The lender who lended the money was told, don't worry, I'm going to pay you on time. But Kenyans being told, hold on, we're on the right path. So I'm sure that's what we want to discuss. What is this right path? What is this progress? Then he also charmed people when he said that the bottom-up economic model actually is working. And whatever that is the case, he says, my promises was that things will go down, but we are facing tough economic times. I'm sure we really want to understand what was it that the president was not aware of. What has really changed from when they did the campaign? Oh no, in economics, we always say that you have to continue doing pastel, because as a strategy expert, I've seen companies that do SWOT to do strategy, then they wait for 5 years. I say, no. SWOT doesn't remain the same. I'm sure even Tabal, in some of your engagement with people or businesses, you discover that the strengths which were there yesterday cannot be there today. And the political environment, economic environment, the global economy is not the same as when we were doing the campaign in 2022. And I'm sure that economists like us, we will be trying to interrogate the global economic environment, how it looks different from 2022, and that's checking whether it is possible that the president can still be able to implement and execute his manifesto. I'm sure manifestos, Kenya need to understand, is not a fixed thing. It's a moving target. And I'm sure maybe this is the time when we need to interrogate after 1 year and say, what have we done 1 year? Are we taking the right turns, or we are taking the wrong turns? And I'm sure that's what people really want to understand. And Debal, to be honest, as an economist, all of us, unless you are a hypocrite, you want the president to succeed. Because if he doesn't succeed, you know, some people are dying of hunger tomorrow. Some kids who want to go to school, you can't wait and say, until 2027 we change the government. But if he fails, you inherit a government where kids have not gone to school, where economy is bad. So anybody who is a leader worth their salt, including the opposition, they should be praying and hoping the president succeeds so that you can inherit him. Because I'm sure even me, who is, let's say you are a second generation in your family, do you want your father to fail so that you can inherit a failed family? Nobody wants that. So what are the kind of the things that we need to give advice and opinion and, let's say, support if you want? And he said something here which I think people need to take seriously. What did the president mean by let us pull together? You know, that word means a lot. Let us pull together. What kind of pull does the president want us to do together? I think that's my main remark.
All right, and I think, yes, just getting a cursory review there, we shall be delving deeper into it and also try and see what is the way forward. There's some of the questions that are being teased out also by Professor here. We shall also look deeply into them. Right, let's just see what he had to say, where the president says his government is on top of things and the rising cost of living is being addressed accordingly. Speaking during the State of the Nation address at the bicameral parliament, the president said his administration has put in place measures to curb the rising costs. At the same time, the president has announced early debt repayment of the accumulated loans. KTN's political affairs and parliamentary reporter, Daniel Karuki, was in parliament and filed the following report.
President William Ruto arrived at the presence of Parliament Thursday afternoon, ready to deliver the State of the Nation. The president inspecting guard of honor mounted by Kenya Army, later escorted by the two speakers of the houses, Moses Wetangula for the National Assembly and Amason Kingi for the Senate, into the chambers for the presidential address, with Kenyans eager to hear his plan for lowering cost of living. President Ruto assured that the government was aware of the high cost of living and that it was on top of things, adding that several interventions have been put in place leading to a drop in prices of commodities.
Cost of living is not an abstract phenomenon. It is a reality experienced by households, which can be addressed through practical action and effective measures. As a result of these interventions, today, a 2-kilogram packet of maize flour is selling at a low of 145 and a high of 175, depending on the brand you buy, down from 250 shillings a few months ago. The famous gorogoro of maize is selling at between 60 and 75. Honorable members, you know how much it costed a few months ago.
The president also took time to address the increased appetite for loans. The president has announced the government will repay the loans earlier than intended, especially the Eurobond.
Our efforts to stabilize the situation have yielded such progress that next month, in December, we will be able to settle the first Kenya shillings $300 million or 500 billion Kenya shillings installment of the US dollars 2 billion Eurobond debt that falls due next year. The time has come, therefore, to retire the false comforts and illusionary benefits of wasteful expenditure and counterproductive subsidies on consumption, by which we dug ourselves deeper into the hole of avoidable debt.
President William Ruto has directed that National Youth Service NYS trainees be given priority during the countrywide police and military recruitments. The president said from next year, recruitment to the NYS will be doubled to 40,000 in a move aimed at expanding job opportunities. The president said from next year, recruitment to the NYS will be doubled to 40,000 in a move aimed at expanding job opportunities for the youth. This as the president also recognized efforts by National Dialogue Committee, NADOC, over the ongoing talks that he says will help in stabilizing and working on the economy.
Specifically, I thank the two co-chairs, my good brother, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, our former president, and the leader of majority in the House, Kimani Ichung'wah, for doing a wonderful job. Congratulations, gentlemen. I salute the courage and patriotism of my fellow leaders who have embraced national dialogue and engaged and encourage all of us to keep up the noble work of bringing Kenyans together. There is so much to report about the progress we have made in serving the people of Kenya.
Daniel Kariuki, KTN News, Parliament Buildings, Nairobi.
And on matters of health, President William Ruto underscored the milestones met, saying the radical reforms instituted, including the enactment of 4 new laws, are set to deliver his government's bottom-up approach to healthcare. President Ruto added that the reforms at the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA, has helped improve stocking rates at the drugs agency by 20%. And as Gloria Milimo reports, the president also cited measures taken to realize his administration's universal healthcare coverage agenda.
Under the Afya Nyumbani model, we identified preventive care as an essential pillar of healthcare service delivery.
Delving into health, President Ruto lauded the August House for playing a critical role in the delivery of 4 main laws set to revolutionize healthcare in the country. In his maiden State of the Nation address, the head of state said that the enactment of the Primary Health Care Act, the new Social Health Insurance Act, the Digital Health Act, and the Facility Improvement Financing Act were essential in the delivery of the newly launched universal health coverage that places emphasis on access, comprehensive, and quality health care. Some of the reforms initiated to strengthen primary health care, according to the head of state, have begun to bear fruit.
Together with all the 47 counties, and again, I am grateful to the governors, we have deployed 100,000 community health promoters fully equipped with the necessary kits and an electronic community health information system. In the last 1 month, CHPs have attended to 1.2 million households.
At the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA, President Ruto underscored progress made in curtailing supply chain-related challenges that have over the years bedeviled the institution. He revealed that reforms have yielded a 20% improvement in its stocking rate.
The Kenya Medical Supplies Agency, as part of many radical reforms, will now deploy ICT to manage supply chains of essential health products and commodities. As a result of this small intervention, KEMSA has improved its stocking rate from 40% to 60% in the last 5 months. And we are now targeting 80% by March next year.
Also, to counter the perennial human resource for health challenges witnessed in the counties that has over the years resulted in industrial action among health workers, he said his government, in conjunction with the county governments, have established the Kenya Health Human Resource Advisory Council that will mediate between both tiers of the government and health workers.
Under Afya Nyumbani, we have scaled up our investment in healthcare workforce, employing 20,000 new healthcare workers, deploying 8,429 workers whose contracts had lapsed, and enrolling 3,394 interns across the country to increase the availability of human capital in our public health sector.
As President Ruto's government seeks to strengthen the health sector, just as indicated in his State of the Nation's address, Kenyans can only hope that the reforms initiated under his leadership will help promote equity, accessibility, and quality of healthcare in the country. Gloria Milimo, KTN News.
On matters academic employment of 56,000 teachers, a new funding model for universities and colleges, and review of entry points for teachers training colleges were the highlights of President William Ruto's State of the Nation address on education. The president said the funding model for universities has brought equity, while the review of entry points for teachers training colleges have greatly increased enrollment.
Urgent and vexing question of transition to junior school has been settled, and the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment will be used for the exclusive purpose of monitoring learners' progress and not for placement in any grade. In keeping with our commitment, 56,000 750 new teachers have been employed, while 8,200 primary school teachers were retrained to equip them with capacity to effectively deliver learning and teaching at junior school levels. With changes to the entry requirements for teacher training colleges, admission has increased by 300% to now 20,456 trainees. The Working Party recommended an overhaul of the existing education funding framework to a variable scholarship and loan model in order to address the financing gap which denied many Kenyans the opportunity to pursue tertiary education in our universities and TVETs, but also created many complications in our universities and institutions of higher learning that by last year, our universities had accumulated debts of close to 60 billion Kenya shillings. I sat down with all the vice chancellors of our 41 public universities, and we came up with a proposal that we are now implementing. The new model of financial support is student-centered and deploys a rigorous, impartial means testing instrument to establish the level of need of every student.
And of course, leaders drawn from both sides of the political divide have given varied views on President William Ruto's inaugural State of the Nation address, with those in Kenya Kwanza applauding the president's remarks as hopeful, setting the foundation for a prosperous nation. On the other hand, legislators from the opposition have poured cold water on the president's speech, saying it failed to address the thorny issue of the high cost of living and related matters.
Mafuta tukiendelea kuangazia hali ya kimataifa, tunatumaini pia itashuka.
Waziri hajazungumzia bei ya mafuta katika hotuba yake. Mbona unadhani alifanya hivyo?
Ni kwa sababu amezungumzia yale mambo ambayo sisi tunaweza fanya kitu. Ya chakula tunaweza, ya mahindi tunaweza, lakini ya mafuta ni hali ya dunia. Na ndio hakuzungumzia. Amesema vile yeye anafanya. Sasa hakutudanganya.
Lakini tangu hii asina ya asla ibuniwe, tumeona Wakenya wengi wamejiunga na hii mpango wa serikali, na tumeona zaidi ya Wakenya milioni 22 ambao wamehusika na wamekopa na wanaendelea kukopa.
I'm happy the president has mentioned that the bipartisan talks that is happening, a national dialogue, is strictly on the legislative and policy intervention. It is not about the handshake, it is not about formation of government of national unity, but he has assured that opposition and government can work together for the betterment of the nation.
Na akasema maneno ya unga, sasa inashuka bei kwa sababu ya fertilizer. Na mimi ni mmoja wale ambao wako kamati ya agriculture. Kwa hivyo ningetaka kusema ile maneno ya dryers, ile maneno ambayo tunaongezea productivity ya maize na sio tu mahindi peke yake. Hiyo ikileta chakula watu wakishiba, maneno yatakuwa mazuri.
Yeye ameongeza ushuru kwa kila kitu, haswa vitu ambavyo hao wanatumia zaidi. Mafuta taa, mafuta ya gari, mafuta ambayo inatumika kwa generating of power, hiyo ambayo imefanya maisha yamekuwa magumu sana kwa wananchi wote.
And an issue that is very current, extremely devastating of El Nino has not been mentioned in as far as that region is concerned. And we come from a region that also has a major problem as a result of inadequate power supply because we are not connected to national electricity grid.
Nilikuwa nimeomba ya kwamba vijana wale wanajitolea wenyewe wanaenda NYS, wawe vijana ndio wanaingia katika disciplinary forces zetu hizi za polisi. Na leo kwangu mimi kama kuna miaka 10 nimesema kweli niliingia hii nyumba mwaka wa 2013 na nimerudi na nikaona mwaka wa 2023 kwamba hiyo maono yangu yamefikia.
All right, to other matters now, where Kenyans can now breathe a sigh of relief after the High Court in Nairobi suspended the proposed increment of charges on key government documents. The suspension is a big setback for the government, which had hoped to increase revenue through hiking of charges on ID, passport, work permit, birth, as well as death certificate applications by over 100%. And as our reporter Brenda Zeda Redido explains, the suspension will stay in force until 29th of this month, when the case will come up for mention.
In a Gazette notice dated 7th November 2023, Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki announced to Kenyans that they will start paying higher charges for key documents offered by the government. The proposal, which trended on social media, had sought to have Kenyans dig deeper into their pockets to pay for documents such as birth certificate, identification card, passport, or even work permit. In the Gazette notice, a 32-page passport would cost 7,500 shillings for an applicant, up from 4,500 shillings. For those seeking a 50-page passport, he or she would need to part with 9,500 shillings, up from 6,000 shillings. For those applying for a 66-page passport, they will have to pay 12,500 shillings, up from 5,000 shillings. A diplomatic passport, on the other hand, would fetch 15,000 shillings. When it comes to application for an ID that was initially free for a first-time application, one would be required to pay 1,000 shillings. For replacement of a lost ID, it will cost 1,000 shillings away from the initial 100 shillings.
Passport imetoka 4,500 imeenda 7,000. Hiyo ni gharama iko juu kusema ukweli. Hatusemi kwamba hayo anafanya ni mabaya. Lakini tuone taksi yetu inafanya nini.
Enyewe maisha ya saa hii imeturemea kabisa na imekuwa ngumu, ile ambayo hata kama tunachoma mahindi jioni unaenda kwa nyumba tu bure.
The proposed charges had caused a public uproar with a section of Kenyans questioning the rationale for increasing the fees. An Nakuru-based Sergeant Dr. Gikenyi Magayi has moved to court to challenge the new phase, saying the new charges are unreasonable and were hiked without public participation. According to Dr. Magayi, the government is denying Kenyans the right to marry and get death certificates. This, according to the doctor, was unfair as most Kenyans cannot afford the charges. This comes as it now emerges that Kenyans who will get Maisha number will be required to renew the card after every 10 years.
Kusema kweli hapo tuangalie sisi watu wa chini, ulituambia maasara ndio una deal na wao, unatuongelelea kuhusu maasara, lakini mahali imefika president, kusema kweli tuangalie.
Si kawaida mambo kuwa hivyo, mara kila kitu kinapanda tu, kila kuchao tu kila kitu kinapanda, mara ni mafuta, mara ni vitu ambavyo vinapanda mpaka watu wanahangaika sasa.
The physical look of the card appears to be an exact replica of Huduma number, which has a chip just as one in Maisha number. Justice Lawrence Mugambi suspended the implementation of the proposals and fixed November 29th this year as the date for mention of the case. Brenda Zedaradido, KTN News.
All right, we'll see how that will pan out as well. Now, Kenya will spend 36 billion shillings to prepare the 1,000 police officers to be deployed to Haiti. Interior and National Administration Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki said this while appearing before a joint parliamentary committee where he said that the amount will, however, be funded by the United Nations and that Kenya will not deploy until it receives all the necessary facilitation. According to Kindiki, the total cost of the mission will be 91 billion shillings. Jeff Kirui has more.
Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki on Thursday appeared before a joint parliamentary committee of the Senate and National Assembly to seek the approval of Parliament to deploy 1,000 police officers to stabilize Haiti. The entire mission will consume 91 billion shillings for the one-year period they will be there.
The total budget is $600 million US. And that involves monies for preparing the forces, the officers, kitting them, transporting them, sustaining them there.
According to Kindiki, the deployment will only happen after the country receives the entire resources for the mission.
Unless all resources are mobilized and availed, our troops will not leave the country. Not even one of them will leave Kenya. So that work is ongoing.
In the meantime, Kenya will spend 36 billion shillings to prepare the officers for deployment.
I have provided in number 8 a small amount of preparatory works, which are internal preparatory works, which will be 241 million. This is an amount that we shall be able to be reimbursed and it's not an amount connected with deployment. It is an amount connected with essential preparations for those officers so that when it is green, we can deploy them.
Some members of parliament raised concern that the deployment of the police officers could compromise the security situation in the country.
Already we are having challenges and gaps in areas we have insecurity. How are you going to fill the gap in the areas you have already taken away our support?
We will not disturb our internal operational capabilities. And let's leave it at that for now.
There is no way we should deny Kenyans protection to give it to Haiti, a country that cannot even protect its own citizens and does not care to protect its own citizens. So for me, it's a no, and I think it's a luxury. And for me, I think that we are trading 1,000 police officers in return for attention of some of those pending issues of Kenya in the UN altar.
11 countries have committed to the mission, and Kenya will be the lead country.
We are going to protect critical infrastructure and the transit locations, the airports, the ports, the schools, hospitals are key. They need support. Then, of course, key intersections.
Jeff Kiroi, KTN News.
Fiery South African opposition leader Julius Malema is in town. The leader has challenged African heads of state to come together and build a strong economy as opposed to relying on Western countries. Speaking during the inauguration of Pan-African Institute at Lukenya University, Mtito Makueni, Malema also called on President William Ruto to rethink his foreign policy. The politician said it was wrong for Kenya to show support to Israel when Palestinians, women and children are butchered in broad daylight.
Pamoja na wasiwasi, muungano wa Afrika, muungano wa Afrika ndicho chanzo cha umoja. Marema ya hii na ukatike msururu, uwe mwisho na baada kukalamu kifuni.
And that armed struggle in Kenya cost a community here 200,000 lives conservatively put because records were not known. It was genocide. It cost community here a mass detention camps like you saw in the Nazi camps. Entire communities of this country, central Kenya specifically, were put under detention like the Nazi prison camps.
The war between Russia and Ukraine. But I'm still to hear the stand of President William Ruto about the ongoing war that is not covered by anyone in DRC, where people are fighting over territorial expansion and plunder of resources, and blacks are killing other black people, and we pretend that we don't see. It's important as leaders of states and governments to always condemn violence and war, especially if it's barbaric and informed by tribalism and unjustifiable territorial expansions.
And finally, the National Dialogue meeting has retreated to write their final report that will be tabled in Parliament. All eyes are now focused on how it will address the issue of skyrocketing cost of living. The committee, chaired by the National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah and Azimio la Umoja Principal Kalonzo Musyoka, finalized its sitting on Thursday and reiterated to Stony at the resort in Machakos County for the final process. With 256 submissions in their hands, the committee will also analyze other submissions that weren't presented orally and harmonize them based on 5 issues on their list of agenda before the report is finalized. The report will then be forwarded to the principals, President William Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga, for adoption before tabling in Parliament.
And we have made tremendous progress and settled and agreed on all the 5 agenda items. And there are also other issues that Kenyans raised in this National Dialogue Committee that were not part of the 5 agenda items that we had in our terms of reference. And we were today discussing on how to handle all those matters. We have agreed on the framework of the report that we shall be doing and adopted the draft framework of the report. We shall be now retreating for adoption of the final report. The technical team and the secretariat retreat tonight to Athi River to start working on the report and the instruments that will give life to all the deliberations that we have had and the issues that we have agreed on. We shall join them on Monday after planting trees and work throughout Tuesday and Wednesday. And hopefully by the end of that week, we should have the report formally adopted and agreed on.
We shall be going to Estonia to iron out every outstanding issue the best way we can. And you know, for us in Azimio, it is the cost of living.
All right, looking at today's editorial cartoons. In the Daily Nation, Victor has drawn this, of course, yesterday's State of the Nation address, and you can see how the ominous clouds, dark cloud banks, had actually gathered in the bicameral house yesterday, and the president was actually trying to make sure that he's taking cover from this ominous cloud, the cost of living, a melange of issues that's actually adversely affecting Kenyans right now, and this is what has been pictured, or has been captured, I should say, by Victor. Right, State of the Nation address. We've just run you about some of the issues, salient points that were raised, seminal issues there that we shall be discussing here with our panelists. And this is higher, go higher. And you can see Kenyan there who is being manhandled by the current administration. He's being bludgeoned, and you can see the weapons there as it is right now. This is how Kenyans are feeling. They're feeling battered by the taxes, going by what we are grappling with right now with the high cost of living, and also looking at even the hiking of the services fees of documents as well, where we've had a doctor now moving to courts to challenge that as well. Higher, go higher and higher and higher. And Kawira, she was in the lion's den, but miraculously she was never devoured by the MCAs or the senators. And this is where we can see Mwangaza surviving. I am the real Daniel in the den. And of course, that is just following her impeachment process that was stopped by the Senate because of no issues that will actually stick on her as far as gross violations of the Constitution is concerned. This is what Stano has done today inside the People Daily. All right, allow me just to listen in to Kipruto Rapkiro and just briefly to comment, first of all, on the cloud banks there that was raining yesterday in State House. You were watching this, Mheshimiwa, I bet, and you can tell us more.
Thank you, Diban, for the opportunity. There are many things that the President has promised, and at times you don't want to hurt your feelings by just watching the entire speech.
So you don't want to tell me switched off?
Well, I just got busy doing other things, but later on I was able to catch up with the highlights of the day, which really amount to just a PR exercise. PR exercise in the sense that the really issues that he ought to have addressed is the definition of what is consumption and what is production. When you're talking about fuel, in terms of either petrol or diesel,
which he didn't address,
that is really where the issue lies. Because last year we were plowing at 3,000 per acre. This year we are plowing at 4,500, simply because the cost of plowing has gone up due to increase in diesel prices. When it becomes transport, logistics, which are the operations outside the farm, but still farm related, the cost of fuel will escalate those issues. So when you say you don't want to subsidize consumption, you want to subsidize production. Production is almost in every aspect of fuel. So when you affect fuel, you affect every aspect of consumption or production. And therefore that definition ought to be clear to those people in government. Otherwise, they are deluding themselves about consumption and subsidy on production or consumption.
Right. Prof, you want to comment especially on the issue to do with the fuel that was not addressed, and that's, as we heard from one of the legislators, other issues were addressed because something can be done about them, but on fuel, well, nothing can be done about it, so we left to the vagaries of the externalities, according to CS Moses Korea.
Yeah, there are some things there that I think the president needs to reflect on. And I told you earlier that for us, we don't want what the president is saying. The president needs to succeed, and he must succeed, and not tomorrow, but today. So if you look at the statements that the president is making, is that it shows that there is a need for people to come and support him. He used the word, let us pull together. So what I'm trying to understand from the word pull together means that if somebody has ideas, come and bring them forward. Me, I'm seeing this as an invitation. So me as an economist, next week we are going to issue statements around what can it that the president needs to do to support the economic growth, because it's simple, as he said, production and consumption. And there's one thing that controls those variables. Taxes are a policy, it's a tool. When you lower taxes, you increase consumption and you increase productivity, you collect more revenue, and therefore you are more able to do more things with that money. Because if you want to do healthcare, if there's no production and there's no more consumption, how will you put money on healthcare? How will you put money on education? How will you put money on things to do with infrastructure? How will you put money on youth? How will you put money on the SMEs? And in fact, if there's no consumption, how does SMEs survive? Because SMEs are concerned about consumption, because if you lower people's buying power by taxes, so for me, tax must be lowered, and that must affect the dollar, because anytime the dollar is now has moved to 155. And let me tell you what, it is the dollar is not that dollar has moved. Let's talk about the shilling has dropped, because guys are getting this wrong. The shilling has depreciated. In fact, the depreciation of the shilling is much faster than the shilling in Uganda and the shilling in Tanzania. So even if you talk about the fuel cost in Tanzania and Uganda, you look at the depreciation of the Kenya shillings, Tanzania shillings, Uganda shillings. So the problem we have can be explained little. Like say, as an economist, I was doing my analysis 2 days before, because I'm sure Debala, we have to give fundamental things. The contribution of cost fuel we have in Kenya, it is 20% global, but 80% internal. Decisions we are taking internally are creating these things, and that's why the president needs to be helped 80-20. So if 80% of our problems are created by things we are doing within the country, what are the things that the president needs to do on this matter? For me, lowering taxes. And let us just benchmark. Singapore is one of the most vibrant economies in the world. The cost of taxation, Singapore has the lowest taxation globally, and Singapore has the lowest government spending globally. So the president talked about the issue of austerity measures in cutting the cost of government. We will suggest to him, transport your government cheaply. They are now using 1,620 cars on the road. They just need a third of that cars. You'll save yourself you'll save yourself around 62 billion shillings. So paying the Eurobond will be easier, and that will bring a lot of, so I'm sure the president needs a lot of systematic change in how government being run. And I would tell you, the president has put up in place what's called economic advisor, and I don't think they're helping him much.
You don't think they're helping him much? I will pick up on that as well, because the economic advisors were saying we are on the right track, and the president also seemed to be also towing that particular line as it is right now. But do you think we're on the right track as it is right now? And Haven't we been amazingly patient? Should we exercise more patience and wait for